Have you ever heard of a drug so dangerous that it's been nicknamed the zombie drug? A substance so powerful that it's used to tranquilize horses, but is now being mixed with street drugs and injected into humans. Welcome to the dark and devastating world of Tranq, also known as Xylazine, a rising threat that's infiltrating communities around the globe. In today's video, we're about to uncover 9 startling facts about Tranq, from its dark journey into the human world to its deadly impact on the body and its unnerving role in escalating the opioid crisis. We will expose the chilling truths hidden behind the misuse of this drug. Number 1. Tranq's origin and intended use. Tranq is a shortening of the word tranquilizer. Let's start at the very beginning, where the story of Xylazine, or Tranq as it's commonly known, takes a surprising turn. You see, this substance wasn't originally cooked up in some clandestine lab for the purpose of human consumption. Xylazine was developed in the 1960s by a German pharmaceutical company, Bayer, for the possibility of human use for pain relief, insomnia, and even as an anesthetic. They discovered that it caused central nervous system depressant effects, as well as a dangerous drop in blood pressure, and scrapped the idea. The drug was ultimately approved as a non-opioid sedative and analgesic for animals. That's right, Xylazine was intended for our four-legged friends, not us. It was primarily used in veterinary medicine to sedate animals for surgery or to alleviate pain. Everything from horses and cows to dogs and cats have been safely sedated with Xylazine under the careful watch of veterinarians. In this controlled environment, Xylazine could induce a state of relaxation and pain relief, making it an excellent tool for animal care. But what happens when a drug designed for animals finds its way into the hands of humans? Well, that's where our story takes a dark and dangerous twist. But before we go down that road, please know that Xylazine, when used as intended, is a legal and valuable part of veterinary medicine. Its misuse is a stark deviation from its original purpose. Number 2. The transition to illicit use. How did this happen? Well, the story of Tranq's transition to illicit use is a convoluted one, rooted in the complex landscape of addiction and substance misuse. For one, Xylazine is significantly cheaper and easier to obtain than many other substances, making it an attractive choice for those looking to cut costs. It's often used as an adulterant or filler in other drugs such as heroin to extend profits while mimicking some of the depressant effects. If that wasn't enough, the effects of Tranq, which include sedation and a feeling of calm, are similar to those sought by individuals misusing opioids. For some, this has led to the belief that Xylazine is a viable substitute or supplement to other substances, but here's the catch. While Xylazine may mimic some opioid effects, it's crucial to remember that it's not an opioid. This means that it doesn't respond to naloxone, a medication commonly used to reverse opioid overdoses. This fact alone significantly elevates the danger associated with Tranq misuse. This transition of Xylazine from the veterinarian's office to the streets is a chilling testament to the lengths some will go to feed an addiction. The misuse of Tranq is a stark deviation from its original intent, and its impact on individuals and communities has been nothing short of devastating. Number 3. The scale of the problem. Now we're delving into the scale of the problem, and it is alarming. Xylazine, known on the streets as Tranq, began appearing in illicit drug markets in the mid-Atlantic as early as 2006. Its presence has been slowly but surely increasing, and since 2015, overdose deaths involving this drug have skyrocketed 20-fold in several cities and states. That's right, 20 times the number of deaths in less than a decade. 4 to 5 months ago, we were seeing just trace amounts of Tranq in illicit drug supplies. But now, we're starting to see batches that are significantly higher, with concentrations of Xylazine reaching upward of 25% in some cases. Drug users may be getting Xylazine without even knowing about it. Overdose-related deaths are increasing in different parts of the country. But here's the kicker. Despite these worrying trends, the basic infrastructure to address what's coming is not available. Many medical examiners don't test for Xylazine, few emergency departments test patients for it, and public health data remain limited. Even hospitals aren't sufficiently aware of Xylazine's unique symptomatology to adequately respond to the emerging needs. The Tranq crisis is here, and it's growing every day. We need to start facing it head-on before it escalates even further. But before we can do that, we need to understand the risks associated with this drug, which leads us to our next fact. Number 4. The physical impact. This is another rather grim side of xylazine use, the physical impact. Users might experience drowsiness and amnesia, but the more insidious effects are less immediately noticeable. Xylazine can slow breathing, heart rate, and blood pressure to dangerously low levels. Now, imagine combining this with opioids, alcohol, or benzodiazepines, substances that are also central nervous system depressants. The risk of a life-threatening overdose skyrockets. And if the risk of overdose isn't alarming enough, repeated use of xylazine comes with its own set of problems. Users have reported skin ulcers, abscesses, and related complications, adding to the toll this drug takes on the body. And remember, xylazine can be consumed in various ways: injecting, snorting, swallowing, or inhaling, each carrying its own risks. These physical impacts are nothing short of shocking, but it gets worse, which leads us to our next fact. Number 5, unusual side effects. One of the most severe and unusual side effects of xylazine injection is the development of severe skin ulcers and abscesses. This is a problem that is becoming more and more common among people who are using drugs containing xylazine, and medical personnel are reporting an increase in patients presenting with these kinds of wounds. These wounds are believed to happen because Tranq constricts the blood vessels, resulting in an inadequate blood supply. Complications include severe soft tissue infections, abscesses, cellulitis, skin ulceration, impaired wound healing, and even bone infections. This can even lead to limb amputations. If that wasn't enough, these complications are made worse because the anesthetic effect of Tranq minimizes the pain that otherwise would have been felt from both the tissue damage and repeated injections. Number 6, Tranq's role in the opioid crisis. Tranq dope is an inconsistent blend of xylazine and usually an opioid like heroin or fentanyl to enhance or modify the drug's effects. Xylazine is also a central nervous system depressant, which can cause drowsiness, amnesia, and can slow breathing, heart rate, and blood pressure to dangerously low levels. Xylazine intensifies the effects of opioids, including sedation and respiratory depression, which can lead to a fatal overdose. When an opioid overdose is suspected, naloxone is given to reverse the effects of the opioids. This happens because naloxone binds to the same receptors in the brain that opioids bind to, reversing the effects of the opioids. However, because xylazine is not an opioid, naloxone does not provide the benefit that it does with opioids. This has led to growing concerns that as xylazine becomes more prevalent in the illicit opioid supply, naloxone may become less effective for some overdoses. Number 7. The legal consequences. You may not believe this, but Tranq or xylazine is not even considered a controlled substance under federal law in the United States. That's right, this powerful veterinary sedative that is causing havoc in our communities is not officially regulated by federal law enforcement. It's a gap in the system that's leaving the door wide open for illicit drug traffickers to misuse and distribute this dangerous substance. However, lawmakers are starting to take notice, and some states are taking tighter control. There is now bipartisan legislation in the works aiming to classify xylazine as a Schedule III controlled substance under the Controlled Substances Act. This classification is for substances that have a moderate to low potential for physical or psychological dependence, putting xylazine a level below potent opioids like fentanyl. This legislation would give law enforcement the tools they need to tackle the spread of xylazine in our communities, while still preserving its legitimate use as a veterinary tranquilizer. This bill also proposes that manufacturers report their production and distribution of xylazine to the DEA. This could help ensure that the drug isn't being illegally diverted to the black market. The supporters of the bill argue that it's a necessary step to combat the abuse of xylazine and put stiffer penalties on those who are illicitly distributing this drug. Of course, not everyone agrees with this approach. Critics of the bill, such as the National Harm Reduction Coalition, argue that criminalization of drugs has never effectively reduced drug use or addiction. They believe it's a step in the wrong direction and that more funding and support should be directed towards evidence-based harm reduction programs like overdose prevention and syringe access programs. The legal implications of xylazine possession and use are shifting. If the legislation passes, it could mean significant changes in how law enforcement tackles the issue of xylazine in our communities. However, it's clear that this is a complex issue with no easy solutions. Number 8. The impact on communities. Tranq use is having a negative influence on communities that is only getting worse. The toll on communities has been significant, with xylazine-related harm and deaths increasing, impacting countless individuals and families. While the crisis persists, it is apparent that communities, legislators, and healthcare professionals are wrestling with the difficult task of resolving this rising problem. The Xylazine, or Tranq, narrative is a vivid reminder of the destructive force of drug abuse on our communities, as well as the critical need for effective solutions. Number 9. Treatment challenges. There are immense challenges that communities and healthcare professionals face in treating those caught in the grip of xylazine addiction. As we mentioned, the combination of Tranq with opioids is a common occurrence that does not respond to naloxone, which increases the likelihood of life-threatening overdoses that emergency healthcare providers may not be able to solve. We have also talked about the extreme wounds, infections, and even amputations that users can experience. The basic infrastructure to address what's coming is not available. Many medical examiners don't test for xylazine, few emergency departments test patients for it, and public health data remain limited. Even hospitals aren't sufficiently aware of xylazine's unique symptomatology to adequately respond to the emerging needs. There is also a challenge of rehabilitation. Like with any substance addiction, overcoming xylazine addiction requires comprehensive, individualized treatment, including mental health support, counseling, and often long-term follow-up. However, the presence of xylazine in the drug supply is relatively new, and many treatment centers may not be fully equipped to handle the unique challenges it presents. There is also the societal response. With the introduction of legislation to control the spread of xylazine, lawmakers are attempting to address the problem at its source by cracking down on illicit distribution. But there's a fine line to walk. How do we balance law enforcement needs with the needs of those who are struggling with addiction? Treating xylazine addiction is a complex task. It's a crisis that requires understanding, compassion, and a comprehensive approach. It's a battle that we must fight on multiple fronts, from the individual level to the societal level, from our hospital rooms to our legislation halls. It's important to note that this information represents a snapshot of the current understanding of xylazine misuse as of May 2023, and time will provide further insights and strategies to address this growing issue. Check out this next video that you might like.